Hey everybody, Ben here from the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Death Zone Mercenaries Reliable Ringer. So we've had a look at all the other mercenaries available in the new Death Zone book. Now you can take 0 to 3 of these and replaces the old mercenary rules if you want to in your league and if you want to in your tournament. What we're doing is we're delving into these because there's a huge amount of options and there's just so much opportunity to build something amazing and or / broken that it really felt like it was worthwhile to delve in. So the beautiful thing about this mercenary is it's Ag 2+. So if you are a slow team, if you are a big chunky team that just needs somebody that can actually do stuff, reliable ringers are something you should probably look into. And there it is, that sweet Ag 2+. So, 70k for move 6, strength 3, Ag 2+, passing 3+, armor 8+, loner 4+. So 70k and you get a loner 4+, pro elf lineman, basically, which we've talked about on the podcast a load of times. And when we looked at the best linemen out there, we kind of considered the fact that there's a lot of these elf linemen that you would absolutely take as a positional. This one, not quite as good as a dark elf on the Renegades team, but it can be taken by anybody, and yes, even you dwarf players. So as I said, you can take 0 to 3 mercenaries, and 0 to 2 of them can be the reliable ringers. You start with that base stat set for 70k, and then you have to give them at least one upgrade. There are 3 categories of upgrades. The first is skills, the second is stats, and the third are trait packages. Now, the trait packages for the reliable ringers are somewhat different than the others. There's only 2 of them, I think, and they're not what you might be expecting. So that's quite cool. You can build your own star player. But realistically, the reliable ringer, if you're going to be taking it, it's going to be your scoring threat, potentially. It's going to be the ball handler, because you've got that Ag 2+. So let's have a look at skills first of all. AGPS. So you can give them 1 agility skill for 30k, or 2 or more for 40k each. So 1 skill, 100k. So if you wanted to get this elf with dodge, now it doesn't have to be an elf, it can just be a particularly agile dwarf. It's up to you and your modelling scheme. But you can give them dodge for 100k. 100k movement 6 Ag 2+ with dodge is going to be really helpful to a lot of teams out there. You can give 1 general skill for 30k, so if you wanted to give them blodge, 130k. 130k for a move 6 2+ blodger is actually pretty tasty. That is cheaper than a wizard. 1 passing skill for 30k. Now, I don't believe this is one of the limited ones, so you can sneak leader onto this. And 1 strength skill for 50k that cannot be mighty blow, so you can't quite make that blodge mighty blow elf that you've all been dreaming of. But what you can do is create a 130k blodger, which is pretty decent. And you can go to town and give them some other stuff, but I think that's realistically what you're going to be looking at. Now, what you can do, potentially, is go catch. Ag 2+ catch is pretty good. And that passing skill is going to be really useful for Nerves of Steel. So what you can do is 70k, 30k for dodge, so 100k, 30k for block, 130k, and then another 30k for Nerves of Steel. 160k, you get yourself a movement 6 elf catcher with Nerves of Steel, which is it's okay. It's okay. The point is that you can build it for your team. So if you've got a good throwing game and you've got the cash, you can just get another sweet catcher. Or for 60k here, for the Elven Kingdom leads, you can make a movement 8. So 70k, 130k to make a movement 8. 190k for a movement 8 blodger. Now we are talking. Right, so you can give them stats. Plus 1 movement for 30k, 2 movement if you're an Elven Kingdom League for 60k. It's a bit grey as to whether you can take 1 or 2 of these. It's leaning more to... the writing actually says you can upgrade or downgrade a stat by up to 2. Okay? To a minimum, right? But multiples, like you can see here, you get the option of +1 AV or +2 passing for a reduced price. It's not a reduced price, but it is limited. So I think what the rules as intended from going through the series are really leaning towards you can get 1 of the upgrades on the left, or if there is a price for 2, you can get 2 there. So that's probably how it's going to play out. AV for 40k, passing for 30, which will take you passing to 3+, passing +2 for 60, which will take you passing to 2+. Ag, you can boost your Ag. So what you can do is build an Ag 1+ leap player, 70 + 50, then leap for 30, 150k, Edge 1+ leaping elf. Interesting player. So everything else we've seen has been really about combat or about cheating something into play, like a chainsaw or ball and chain or a stabby stabber, stuff like that. The reliable ringer here is a proper player. We've seen big guys, we've seen blockers. They can murder stuff. They get mighty blow +2, which no one else has unless you are a very expensive star player. The reliable ringer here, can you even add two edge to this for 100k? Interesting. So you can do all these different things. You can also reduce -1 to any stat for 10k a pop. And whether that stacks or not is down to your iteration of the rules. We've kind of run this to actually drop it. So if you want an elf that's going to catch but never throw, you can drop its passing down to 6+, save yourself 20k, and just sneak an extra skill on potentially. And there is actually a few, there's a little menu of mutations that you can also take. So we've already looked at Edge 1+ leapers, cheeky movement 8 blodgers. This is getting quite exciting. Now you can give them some mutations as well. Now the whole angle here with these ringers is Eldril Sidewinder. Okay, he was blessed by the Chaos Gods. Are you even cursed by the Chaos Gods to get a free skill? I don't know. The whole point is that there are some traits in a player that represent a mutation really, really nicely. So you got 2 heads, you got very long legs, you got extra arms, big hand. I believe you can take one of these, 30k a piece, 20k for extra arms, and only if your team is favored by chaos. So if you are a chaos team and you want an elf catcher, you can do it, and you can give him a big hand, you can give him extra arms, you can give him 2 heads or very long legs. Now very long legs is going to be quite useful when it comes to leaping, but for 30k versus the 50k from Edge, it might be better just to take the Edge. Anyway, you actually get to take and build your own mutated elf player. So if you've got a historic player in your league from the before times that actually got Edge boosted, you can do it, and you can chuck on mutations, and you can just build some really fun stuff. And the last piece of the puzzle is the trait packages. So like I said, there's only 2. And the first one drops your guy to Loner 5+. And then you get Hypnotic Gaze. So 60k for that. 60k for Hypnotic Gaze, essentially. Loner 5+ is a bit of a nuisance, but I don't know. Loner 5+, Loner 4+, you're going to fail it anyway. So Hypnotic Gaze will give you that little extra angle. The whole point here is you can build your kind of own Eldril Sidewinder if you want. And it can be for anything. And that's the cool thing about all the Mercenaries here, is that these packages and these skills and these upgrades, they can represent whatever it is you want to represent. So if you're running a league and you've got some magical dryad that's just distracting, or a sylph or something, you can chuck Hypnotic Gaze and have that. It's just quite interesting. And the second package is the same that we've seen for everybody, which is 20k stab secret weapon. No effect to Loner, no nothing. So if you want to create a master assassin, give him movement 8 and blodge and Edge 1+, you can still give him stab as well, which is really interesting. I don't know if the Rabelinger is the best player to have stab on. I think if you want to go stab, you may just take the blocker, or just a couple of cheap stunties with stab, which is that's actually brilliant. Actually, that'll be what, 50k a pop for those halflings. So 100k is going to get you 2 halfling knife people. Oh man, I love these mercenaries. So with the trait packages, what we like to do is put them together and give you archetypes. So you've got the standard archetype, and from that you add stuff too. If you want to take one of the traits, you can end up with a Hypnotic Gaze player, 0-2, 6, 3, 2+, 3+, 3+, man, you can make these guys passing lords. Armor 8+, 130k to start with that stat line and Hypnotic Gaze. So if you want to play a high edge vampire kind of team, if you want to go for that angle, if you just want to have that cheeky little skill and start with that, you can do this here. Then you can chuck on some combat skills, give him block, give him sidestep, just keep him in base contact so you can make the most of that Hypnotic Gaze. Or you can make them a stabby elf. 0-2, 90k is going to get you that stat line 6-2, 3+, 6-3, 2+, sorry, 3+, 8+, with Loner, stab and secret weapon. So if you want to go for a high edge stab person, you can for 90k. And it's really interesting because actually if you're building these players, like I said, you can drop stats down. So you can just drop your passing by 2 to get 20k. This will drop this player down to 70k, and then you're starting at exactly the same point. So if you kind of free roll stab here, the downside is it's secret weapon. So whatever you build here is gonna be getting gone unless you've got bribes. So we've looked at the 2 archetypes, the stabby one and the Hypno Gaze one. I'm not particularly excited by either of those. But what it does do, along with those mutations, is it allows you to build your character. And we love Blood Bowl because you get to build your own franchise. And in that franchise, those players start to develop their own character. You can use this to bring somebody back from a league of old, bring a star player back from a before gone time. You know, if you're one of those hardcore first and second edition players, you can bring some of those star players that just got lost in the laurels of time. You can bring back the ninja star player. And if you're going to do that, then the reliable ringer is probably the best way to do. I can't even remember what his name is. It's that long ago. There is a ton of stuff you can do with a reliable ringer. Let's just take a second to think about the different positionals, the different mercenaries you've got. Stunties are cheap stuff. You can buy cheap just stabbers, cheap leader potentially. You can buy cheap things there and you can add that avenue to your team. Big guys bring muscle. They can be added to any team and they will be useful. The blockers are a poor man's big guy. They always have been and they fit that role in the mercenaries. The linemen are your just bits of everything. They're an interesting one and they're not probably going to be that popular except as a starting point. But the ringers are potentially the best way to score extra touchdowns. And I know it's 1 agility, but that 1 agility mixed in with this skill selection can allow them to be really impactful on your team. Now, whether or not your league is going to use mercenaries or whether your tournament is going to allow mercenaries, I don't know. What I do recommend and what we're kind of looking at in our local group is every coach gets to build one. It gets sensor checked by the group and then becomes available for the group. And someone said, well, what if you create a chaos player and you're an elf team? Well, then you've created a great star player for somebody else. But you can use this to build stuff. If you're running a tournament, you can use this to build a couple of star players that are just for your tournament. The rules are going to be boosted, but it is a great exercise in just having fun, building your story, and then just getting to run it on the pitch. In fact, I can see a lot of mini leagues just saying build your own star player and buy it onto your roster at the beginning of the season. Still get loaner or whatever, but it's a really interesting way of allowing you to create your own characters in Blood Bowl. And we do that by playing leagues for years and years and years. But actually, if this is a way to bring some of those players back into this edition, if your league is okay with it, then I think you are going to end up having a really good time. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of all the mercenaries in Blood Bowl 2020. I love them. I don't think they're balanced, but I do love them. And I'm going to disappear, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.